All right, welcome back to KP Unpacked. This is my opportunity to sit down with KP Ready and say, hey, what were you thinking when you posted that on LinkedIn? My name is Jeff Eccles. I'm a senior advisor at KP Ready Company. And as always, I am joined by our CEO and founder, and also the founder of Shadow Ventures, KP Ready. Hi, KP.
Hey Jeff. Now the irony is I spent all weekend working in my self-storage facility, packing and unpacking.
well, well, I don't want to lift any boxes, so let's stick with the unpacking side of that. That sounds like a really great way to start off your new year,
Well,
packing and unpacking.
I was moving from Atlanta to Asheville, and then I move all my stuff from Asheville back to Atlanta in a storage facility,
Correct. Yeah.
and then now we're moving to California. So, you know, there you go.
There you go. And you posted about on LinkedIn. It's not what we're going to discuss today, but you posted on LinkedIn about the climate disasters in Asheville and currently in California. It seems like those there is it a coincidence that you're
Yeah.
going to those places?
That joke's already been told about 100 times in the last week.
I'm sure it has.
It's like my friends are all like, "Tell me where you're moving next, and I'll go ahead and short all the real estate in that market." So,
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm sure the governors of those states have some questions as well.
yeah,
Yeah.
maybe they'll
All right. Well,
pay for me to stay in Atlanta.
exactly, exactly. Well, let's pick a different LinkedIn post
Okay.
to unpack. As I say in the introduction all the time, it's this is my opportunity to ask you. I say it tongue in cheek, of course. What were you thinking? But to ask you what the inspiration for the post is. So I'm going to start off by reading this post, and as we're discussing this, you posted about a week ago. As someone's listening to this in some time shifted manner, who knows? But the post goes like this: Prospect. We would like to hire your firm to help our engineering firm get out of the billing for hours business and into more of a value add business. Me, meaning KP, me, great. I'll have my team put a proposal together. Prospect, we reviewed your proposal. We're comfortable with your experience and your track record and your methodology. The fee is in our budget, but we don't understand the pricing. Can you provide an hourly rate and number of hours for the engagement? Now, my background is architecture. I've been in that world a long time. I've consulted in that world a long time, and I've consulted with a lot of people, a lot of firm leaders about value-based pricing, different methodologies,
Yeah.
because I hate, you use this hashtag no more billable hours. I hate the trading hours for dollars model. It's not sustainable, I don't believe. It's not scalable, I don't believe. So when you posted this, I actually laughed out loud. Right? This is
Yep.
so true. But as you were thinking this, as you were typing this, getting ready to post it on LinkedIn, obviously there was something that led to this post. So what was it?
Yeah.
What was it
It,
that
w-
had
it
happened? What were you thinking?
it was this conversation, right? Like, so it's like I had to point out the irony of it all,
Yeah.
right? And of course I shared the LinkedIn post with them. Um, is that you're hiring me to get away from billing time, and you're confused about how I do business, which is not about billing time. And like it's just like so ironic, right? And I think it's a little bit of, a little bit of you are what you eat. They're so used to
Yeah.
selling that way and providing
Mhm.
that way,
Yeah.
they
It's
don't
the
know how to
professional
buy.
services model.
Right. They don't know how to buy differently.
Right.
Yet what they were asking to buy is helping them get out of this. Right. So
Right.
I think it would be even more ironic if I did give them a rate sheet in hours. Like, I'm going to bill you by the hour to teach you how to not bill by the hour.
Yeah.
It's like, that's weird. Like, you haven't figured it out for yourself, and you're going to come in here and tell us what to do.
Yeah. And there'd be some serious questions from our team about that. It's
Yeah.
like, hey, what are you doing there? What's going on there? Yeah. In my experience, and we're about the same age. I'm a little bit older than you are, but so we've both been around the AEC industry for a bit. And there's a person who will go nameless that I've had this debate with over and over and over for several years now. And, it's a friendly debate at this point, but I tell them all the time, it's like you've got to get out of this hourly billing, not even the cycle, but the business model. And the reason that they won't, I'm picking on one firm in particular, but they're not unique, right? The reason that they won't do it is one because they I, I don't believe they actually understand their true value proposition,
Mhm.
right? They attach their value proposition to the deliverables and the number of hours it takes to get to those deliverables. Not unlike an attorney or
Mhm.
others in professional services, but I also think it's driven by fear, right? Well, you should change from this to the other. Yeah, but there's so many variables. We don't know what kind of changes the clients are going to make, and what's going to come up, and all of these things. And it's easy for me to push back and say, well, yeah, but your agreements cover that, right? You're using AIA contract documents, and it's already covered in the contract documents. But my suspicion is, my knowledge is that when you're looking at this and thinking about this and talking about this and helping an engineering firm get over this hump, you're actually looking deeper into the business model than just the
Mhm.
surface level.
Yeah.
You need to quit. You need to quit that trade. There's
Mhm.
something else there. So what is it that you are trying to get them to implement when you're working with them?
Yeah, so I think you're right, right? The introspection is, oh, my customer treats me like a commodity. We bill by the hour.
Exactly.
But
And that's the
guess why?
complaint.
Guess why? Because you're a commodity,
Hmm. And you're
right? The
acting like
offering
one.
you're acting like, I mean, I had another post where it's similar, like parallel, but this idea like return to office. If you return to the office and you show up every day and you walk by your boss's office and say, "Hey, good morning, boss," and at the end of the day you say, "Goodbye, boss," you've done your job, right? You came to the office, you gave them your time. You're probably not that light. You're probably will be fine, right? You probably have a job. If you're purely remote, it's all about results. There is no softening of, oh, I
Right.
showed up to the office. It's not my fault there wasn't any work for me to do, right? It's all results based.
Yeah.
And and I think that's where, like a lot of this stuff where people are getting fired now by using those mouse activity apps, to make themselves look like they were online the whole time. What they miss is that's not how that works, right? If you show up to the office, I was in my office, I came to work, I put in my time, I went home. If you're going to be fully remote, it's all about results. It's 100% about results.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of firms that bill by the hour, they are a commodity because the product that they're selling or the service they're selling is a commodity, and the unit of that commodity is hours. A rate,
Hmm.
it's hourly rate times number of hours equals what you charge me. And a lot of the work, which I know you've done as well, has been trying to remap what the offering is,
Right.
what where the value is, and where it's not. And I think, but for me, there's that everybody's asking this question. And in many ways, the answer is in front of them. Like, oh, you're a commodity. That's why clients bill by the hour. By the way, if you're not that productive or you don't produce results for those 10 hours, guess what? You still get to bill it. The
Mm.
client's not saying, hey, you billed me 10 hours. Tell me what you did in those 10 hours. And I want to make sure you gave me the most value.
Yeah.
Right. It's funny enough, I have this project I'm working on that I put on pause back in October, and I got a bill from my lawyer that was helping me on it for point 0.9 hours. And my response to them was, this is fraud. I haven't been working with you guys. Right. I haven't been doing anything. Why'd you send me an invoice? And I'm sure it's some junior person that had been working on the project that forgot to put in a timesheet, or, or it's fraud, or they just made a mistake. Right. But
Okay.
now, me being me, what the hell were you doing for point 0.9 hours
Hmm.
on this project that I put on pause back in October? And now I'm going to dig in. And now I'm going to dig into the old invoice. So now what you've done is it's blood in the water for a guy like me, right? Like point nine, like what's this about? What were they doing exactly? What did they produce for point 0.9 hours? And now I'm going to go pull the old invoice and go line by line item and want to talk to those people. Like, what the hell did you do for 3 hours?
Yeah.
Right? But that doesn't happen often because most people are not crazy like me that they would go do.
It
A lot of
it
times the client just says, "Oh, it took what it took. It took the number of hours."
yeah, it doesn't, but to your point, it opens the door, right? When I'm working with people on de-commoditization, right? Anytime you open that door for them to walk through, they may, right? And you should expect that they might. And I think, and it'd be interesting to get your take on this, but I think there are a couple of things. Number one, we're billing hourly, right? So we're billing as a commodity, right?
Mhm.
When we're able to quantify those units and basically on one hand say that our value proposition is the number of hours that we spend on that. That's problematic. That is commoditization, right? You're being commoditized. The other thing is if you're billing in that way, if your agreement is set up in that way, then you're being penalized for getting better at what you do
Mhm.
or using better tools. So if I can get this job done faster, 10 hours faster this time than I did last time, I lose.
Yeah. You know what, Jeff?
And
I think here's what we're gonna do at the next mastermind in Phoenix when we're together.
yeah,
I'm gonna hire three different masseuse. One that's inexpensive, middle of the road, and very expensive. And I'm not gonna tell you, it'll be like a blind examination of a massage.
you might want to run this by legal, by the way. Just
No,
just saying.
it's a business expense, wellness. Um,
Okay.
and then I'll
What could
reveal to you,
possibly go
right?
wrong?
I'll make you rate them, right? I'll make you rate them all. And then at the end of it, I'll tell you how much they were. And then you can tell me, like, man, that was worth it. Like that $200 30-minute massage was worth it compared to the $50 massage, right?
Yeah.
And it's an hourly rate business, right? But there's lots of variability in
Mhm.
quality and capability. Same thing with haircuts. My wife makes me go to these fancy hair places where it's not the same price for a haircut. It depends on which hair artisan I pick,
Interesting.
right? And one of them's 85 and the other one's 25. And when I ask the question, I'm like, because my wife wants me to do 85. Um, and I'm like, what's wrong with the 25? And they say things like, well, he'll give you a solid haircut. And I'm like, what does that mean? Like, is he
Yeah,
straight out of
what does that
school?
mean?
Like what does
Yeah,
that mean, right? Like
sure.
he'll use scissors and not make me bleed. Like, I mean, what does that mean, right? And so you start to see
Bonus.
these variations, right? And I think a lot of times, the question is, in back to our world, right? If you're a staff architect, say $75 an hour billable, or you're a principal architect, $250 an hour, what's the difference?
Mhm.
Does that mean that the $250 an hour architect is faster, more productive
Mhm.
than the 75 hour? I would argue probably less productive.
Definitely less productive if we're talking about deliverables.
So then why am I paying more
Yeah,
if it's about productivity?
exactly. And
But
I
it's not.
think no, it's not. And I think one of the fundamental problems too that we've had for generations now in the AEC world, um, professional, across professional services world is, um, again, my background's architecture. So if I take the architect's point of view, many times the architects are thinking, okay, I'm designing this thing. It's a pizza shop or it's a museum or it's a cold storage facility or it's a data center or whatever it is. And they think about or they think that the value that they're creating is the design of that thing, which is absolutely incorrect. The value that they're creating is what that thing allows their client to do,
Mhm.
what that thing allows their client to create or experience, or there's other variables in there as well, right? Budget and time and things that are in the performer, et cetera, but operating expenses and whatnot. But but I think we have for, I'm going to argue, for 100 years, that we've placed the value proposition in the wrong spot, and
Mhm.
then gone even further down that road with this hourly billing and go, okay, well, it's the number of hours that I spend on this, and it's this thing that I design, and both of those are wrong.
Yeah.
And it all collapses into this black hole of commoditization.
Yeah, and I get in this debate a lot. Clearly we're a niche, we're a boutique advisory firm,
Sure.
which is just code for saying small and expensive. So I get a lot of people like wanting to negotiate fees with me, and I'm like, look, I'll work for no fee. I'll just take 10% of your company.
Hmm. How's that go?
It's like, well, I mean, but what? And I'm like, I'll risk everything. Your company might be worth zero, um, or I'll make it on the upside, or I'll take 20%. We'll build a new product together. I'll take 20% of the revenue from now and forever.
Mhm.
And so so then they look at that and they're like, well, no, what? How about we just do a project, right? And by the way, I've done all those types of arrangements, right? Back with startups, I've taken equity to do work, but you have to really, you know, really kind of be aligned on what you're trying to do. And I think a lot of times with these firms, when they ask me to help out, they're really looking for coaching. They don't want me to come in and do it.
Hmm,
They
interesting.
don't want me
Okay.
to come in and spend time with them and create a playbook and train them on the playbook. And they really want to do it themselves. They're not looking to kind of outsource that part. I think it's just they don't know what to do to build that next product or build that next service because honestly, they've never done it before.
Right.
No, nobody practicing architecture invented the practice of architecture.
They
Those
didn't.
people are dead.
They are.
So, um, but the point of that post though was kind of the irony and like a little bit. You don't even if you don't even know how to buy a service
Yeah.
differently than how you sell your service.
Yeah.
And maybe
Yeah.
that's the starting point. Like, and I think someone posted in the comments, which I think we're gonna start having people that post in the comments on the pod, right? So you're not always talking to me about it. So you had an interesting idea, but someone kind of posted a comment like, well, it looks like you already created value just by giving them the proposal. Like that was the training. Like you've already trained them. Here's the first chapter of the first phase of the engagement is like you understanding my proposal,
Right.
something like that. So I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah. Yeah. You did get a comment that said crazy. They shouldn't pay you unless you produce a result, and then you should share in the gain. I'm sure that's how your proposal was structured. And I actually, I mean, this came from a management consultant, right?
Hmm.
So they have, most of the time management consultants have a little bit different mindset about proposals and value creation, et cetera, than an engineering firm does. Um, so it comes from a little bit different perspective, but I think that's also pretty interesting because coming from the management consultant, are they offering to work for free?
No, no.
No.
Their value prop is we have talent that you can't afford to keep on
Mhm.
full
Right.
time.
Right.
You don't have the methodology and process for you to do it yourself. So we're going to do it for you. And we're going to charge you $1 million a month to do it.
Right. 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 But back to your point about this is that hourly billing, trading hours for dollars concept is so ingrained in the profession, in the industry, that this is the way we've always done it, sort of thing,
Mhm.
certainly, um, but it is showing up in not understanding how to buy, which I think you would probably point to and say this is part of the disruption that's coming, or a
Yeah.
signal in the disruption that's coming.
Yeah. And, I kick around lots of, I have the benefit of having lots of a great network, right? And so I'm always kicking around different business model ideas. And I met this company years ago, and they were a legal financing company. I was like,
Okay.
what? Like, when someone gets a settlement, they're like, no, 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 we back law firms. And I didn't realize this. I just always assumed that law firms, they had the hourly rate side of the house,
Mm-hmm.
and then they had the contingency, like the litigation, like if we win this lawsuit, we get 20%, 30% side of the house.
Mm-hmm.
And I just always assumed that the hourly rate people kind of paid the bills for this contingent group.
Yeah.
It turns out there's financing companies for this. So what you do is you say, hey, we got this new client. They think they have this great big lawsuit against this pharmaceutical company. It's going to take us $10 million of hours
Mm-hmm. 10
to do
years.
the work in 10 years or whatever. And they get it financed. They get it financed. And so I found that really interesting because I had this architecture advisory client of ours, it's an architect, tell me like I would be a partner in the development of every client I had if I could.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning if I could afford to front the payroll and everything else until I got paid, until like, I'm just making it up, a shopping center, right? We're gonna
Right.
develop the shopping center. I'm gonna not charge fees. I'll be a partner in the deal, which means I'll also play out of scope, right? I'll go to
Right.
all the meetings. I'll have a voice in how we spend our money. Like I'll be a partner in the deal, right? But it takes 12 months to design and build it, and then
Mm-hmm.
it's got to get leased up. So maybe I recoup my money, and then we're gonna flip it to a private equity group or whatever. It's a 24-month cycle.
Right.
I can keep my payroll up for 24 months, so to speak. And so, their point was like, that's why we do billable work, so we can fund. And so I was talking to some friends of mine, I'm like, maybe we should do that. Maybe that's a business model for designers to say, look, you should work as an equity partner in the deal. I will finance your team to deliver, and I'll take a slice of the equity and I'll take an interest rate. I mean, all those things, right?
Yeah.
But that gets interesting, right? Like be a part owner in everything that you do.
Right.
That builds balance sheet, that builds value, that aligns the interests too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are you
It
designing it because you're trying to win an award, or are you designing it because you want to get it leased out?
yeah. That So I'm once again this semester I'm a thesis advisor. And usually when a student comes to me or gets pointed to me to be a thesis advisor, it's because they're working on a project where they're exploring the concept of architect as developer.
Mhm.
And so it's this exact scenario. And what has always amazed me is that there are plenty of people around, and also some capital people that I know that say, "Oh no, architects should not be developers." Yeah, okay. There's some decent stereotypical reasons behind
Mhm.
that, at times, but at the same time, there are examples out there of, there's one in particular that has kind of coined the term architect as developer, that's self-financing something like
Mhm.
190 some $1 million project, right? And it's been years, right?
Mhm.
They've been self-financing. They started
Yeah.
small and built up, that kind of thing. It's been They've been at it for maybe 30 years at this point,
Yeah.
but they're self-financing 190 some $1 million project.
Yeah.
There's a tremendous upside to this,
Yeah. My dad was chief
potentially.
engineer for John Portman,
Mhm.
and John Portman started off doing architecture work,
Yep.
and then he got into the development business, and all of his business became the development business.
Right.
And he did very well at it. He did very well.
Right.
Almost went bankrupt a couple of times, but
Well,
that's just real
part of
estate
the game.
development.
Yeah,
It's part of
it
the game,
is.
right?
It is. Yeah. So, bringing it all back around, right? You posted this on LinkedIn, and it was this interesting conversation between you and a advisory engagement client or prospect, I guess. And so I'll recap it here really quickly. You said the prospect says, "We'd like to hire your firm to help our engineering firm get out of the billing for hours business and into more of a value add business." Great goal to have. You said, "Great, we'll have our team put together a proposal," and the prospect gets the proposal, and they said, "Hey, we reviewed it. We're comfortable with the experience, the track record, the methodology, and the fee that's inside our budget, but we don't understand the pricing. Can you provide an hourly rate and the number of hours for the engagement? And another comment was, on this post was send them back the definition of irony. Right. And that's part of it, right? But
I will tell you, sometimes I write these posts and I laugh at myself, but the comments are really what gets me
right.
laughing. Some of the comments are just so good.
Yeah. The comments are still where it's at, I think,
Yeah.
across all the platforms. But yeah, I mean, very good points here, I think, right? It's ingrained in the industry, so much so that we have trouble getting out of our own way and thinking about new business models, to the point that we're asking for the only thing that we know, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's right.
All right. Well, KP, thank you for unpacking this post for us again today. For those of you that are out there, if you don't follow KP on LinkedIn, you should. Just look up KP Reddy, Reddy, and he posts at least once, usually two, maybe three times a day, thought provoking, a lot of AEC industry, AEC innovation insights there to learn from, and it's great to be able to sort of pull the curtain back and find out where these posts come from. So KP, thanks again for joining us. And for all of you out there, we'll be back again next week with another episode of KP Unpacked. KP actually mentioned as we were talking, and I don't know when it is that you're listening to this right now, but we're going to be gathering in Phoenix on February 25th for our next in-person one-day mastermind event. You can go to kpready.co/events to find out
Yep.
more about that and join us in Phoenix. There'll be plenty of people there. Our current mastermind members, many of whom are directors of innovation, chief innovation officers, um, construction technology leaders. There'll be some startup founders and some VCs there. And we're throwing the doors open. You want to join us? Want to dig into topics about innovation and business models around the AEC industry and more topics? Go to kpready.co/events and apply to join us there in Phoenix in February. I'm sitting here looking at 10 inches of snow. That sounds pretty good to me right now. All right, everybody. We'll see you next week. Thanks, KP.
Thanks, Jeff.